it is really beautiful, emotional stuff to be able to connect with strangers over things that you're told you're not supposed to talk about.
This week on Influence, it's the Duchess of Dildos. Long may she reign. Greetings, internet travelers and information superhighway surfers. Welcome back to Influence with me, Matt Silverman. Thanks again for hanging out for another week talking about internet creativity, the people who make the stuff on the internet that we love to share and subscribe to, and I don't know, fantasize about being the cool YouTuber and Instagrammer and podcaster and TikToker that we all wish we could be. I just gave a talk at my kids' school about how fucked up social media is, and it hit a chord. A lot of parents were very interested in that. I met some kids who were also kind of like middle school age who might aspire to do creative stuff on the internet. And I said, watch out. Be careful out there. It's a rough business. It's a rough world, but it's also the most exciting and most interesting world. So it was a good time. A good time was had by all. This week, I've got a fantastic show for you. I know I always say that, and most of the time I'm bullshitting, but this time it's real. Just kidding. Everyone's great on the show. I don't book guests unless they're excellent. And look, longtime listeners will know we've covered sexy topics on the show. More recent listeners know that we have discussed sex education and the NSFW side of the internet will pop up here and there on this feed. But I'm very excited about this conversation because we're going to get a little more in the weeds on that sort of stuff. My guest today is a sex educator, and I think she's referring to herself as a sex edutainer. We're going to talk about what that means. You know what it means, but I love the internet because we can learn stuff while having fun. That's why I'm here. And I hope you're getting that benefit from this show as well. She is an author of many articles and a book, which is called Carnal Knowledge, Sex Education You Didn't Get in School. We'll talk about that later. She is an artist. She is an advocate, and her work is followed by hundreds of thousands across Instagram, TikTok, and a little website that I like to call OnlyFans. We'll talk about that as well. Please welcome Zoë Ligon to Influence. Hello and welcome.
Hello, thanks for having me.
How are you? And where are you?
I'm good. It's early morning for me because I'm a late riser, and I am in beautiful Detroit, Michigan. It's a beautiful spring day here.
Excellent.
I'm feeling good. I'm on my first cup of coffee.
Good. I left mine in the kitchen, so I need to get back to it. You educated me that Detroit and New York are in the same time zone, which I don't think I ever would have thought that.
We are Midwestern, but we are Eastern time.
Amazing. Well, yes. Glad to have you on this side of the aisle. I always ask all my guests, when you meet someone and they say, "What do you do for a living?" What do you say? How do you explain it?
It depends who's asking.
That's always the answer that people say too, but I love it.
Yeah, I mean, if I'm at the gym and it's like a random dude, I'll say I am in shipping and fulfillment. And then
they back away slowly.
Yeah, if it's like I'm out at like a party or a social event, I'll say I sell dildos, and then depending on how interesting that is to them, I'll either go into more detail or not. Rarely am I ever leading with like OnlyFans, just because sex toys are a more common denominator. But depending on, there's plenty of environments I do find myself in where that is the main, if I'm at like an adult related event, obviously.
Sure. Yeah.
The biggest like joke instance of like, what do you say is on an airplane. And because you'll either, if you're honest, no matter who it is, you'll either have one of the best conversations or one of the
Right.
worst conversations of your life.
And you're
I
trapped
have,
with them for 3
yes.
hours. Yeah.
The positive side of that is that I've had like very unassuming people tell me they're very similar but like unexpected adult like that. The people will be like, oh, I do something similar, this is what I
Mm.
do, and then they like
Mhm.
insert fun interesting thing, and then I'm learning about them. This has genuinely happened.
I love this.
And then the flip side of it is then I have some guy telling me about the porn he likes to watch and
Cool.
what his wife likes, and I'm hoping that he's not raising his voice too much so that other people on the plane aren't uncomfortable, because I know how to speak in a reasonable voice when I talk about anything. I know how to say dildo in like a library voice.
Yes.
But
yes.
not everybody does. So
I'm just thinking of like dumb white dudes shouting the word dildo from the rooftops when they speak about it.
It's usually more like talking about their porn tastes when I start like having my head on a swivel and being like, oh God. Because listen, like you really can't judge a book by its cover. I have such lovely conversations and with people I don't expect, and vice versa, unfortunately.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, the plane is a fun one.
I love that as like an example. Yeah.
Your takeoff and your departure and arrival airport also are major factors in this. Like if I'm going like Miami to Vegas or something versus like Detroit to North Carolina, it's going to be a different vibe, you know?
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Absolutely. I see what you mean. All right. We're going to talk about, what you talk about on a plane when people ask you, but briefly before we get into your livelihood, what was your childhood and or education? Like when you were coming up in the world, where did you see yourself? What did you want to do for a living if it was not this?
It's funny because I think I did and did not fulfill my dreams because I wanted to work for myself. I wanted to be an entrepreneur. I wanted to be an entrepreneur even before I knew what I wanted to, do, like what I wanted to deal in. And I also wanted to be a psychologist or a psychiatrist at one point in time. There was a moment where I was like, I'm going to be a doctor. But I did like a pre-med year in undergrad and said, hell no, no. Let's just talk about the brain. I don't want to take any more biology classes. So I think, I have a psychology degree, an undergrad, bachelor's of science, and I can't say that I've applied that in a clinical sense, certainly, but I'd say aside from, the obvious psychological components of sex, I mean, I'm really thankful I know how to read like research papers and things like that. I understand statistics and writing. I mean, you don't have to study writing specifically to, learn how to write, but I think that that's one of my strongest suits and certainly what's helped carry me to where I am today. And still to this day, maybe one of my favorite methods of self-expression, although it is a more draining one.
Right. It depends who you are, but I find writing exhausting. That's why I just talk about stuff instead of I write as little as I can these days, but I get what you're saying.
Yes, very different, but you can and can't see someone's personality in writing, but I do like to take the challenge of trying to let my personality show in my writing without being too obnoxious, because sometimes when a writer gets a little too quirky, it's annoying.
Everyone can be themselves when they're speaking, but writing is a technology and a skill that has to be learned. So excellent writers are amazing, but the personality, bad writers don't come through in the person. Like normal people are probably not great at writing. Anyway, so when you finished college, What's going on? Like, where do you find yourself? And, I've done my research, but take us through the timeline of how you arrived here.
Yes, I took so many AP classes in high school that I graduated a year early, which is great on many levels. But the only downside of that is that I didn't have a final year to prepare myself for what came next. It was kind of like I was finishing my third year and they were like, you could just graduate now. And I was like, oh, okay. I'm obviously going to do that. I don't care about
what next.
Yeah. I wasn't like part of like college culture or anything. Yeah. So I wasn't like, I'm going to leave my friends behind. No, I was like, get me out of here. But I was working at a sex toy store, just like a purely retail job. But obviously, I was selling sex toys, so we were technically trained as sex educators as well, although not in any, certifiable sense, but we were taught how to talk to people about sex toys.
Right.
And I think that is so much more like I am not a therapist, but as far as my ability to talk with and engage with people, that is really an environment where I learned a lot of things about how to talk to people in very uncomfortable but illuminating ways. Basically being in a position where anyone can just walk in off the street and talk to you about sex.
Right.
You're going to have a lot of beautiful interactions, and you're going to have a lot of unsettling, weird interactions that you will never forget as long as you live.
One observation, that sort of access to random people about intimate things feels like the internet, even though back then it was in IRL. So there's an interesting training that maybe prepared you for what you do now. And then follow-up question, you got to give us examples of some of these conversations.
Yeah, I think that people, like, I do genuinely believe that, like, people are, I don't believe in good or bad people, but I think like the things that compel people to act poorly in a sex toy store are a product of society versus somebody, like I see beyond like just being an asshole and see how like there's all these factors that culminate into you being an asshole when the subject of sex comes up.
Yeah.
Now that I interface with the public more so through a screen, it's so different because people will be way more bold when there is anonymity.
Yes.
But it's far more jarring when it's in person because you have to think in a split second about what is being said to you. And it took me a really long time, and I'm still working on how to like really directly confront inappropriate behavior when I see it, because it's really easy to just kind of like awkwardly like smile and, a fawn, F-A-W-N trauma response of like, oh, ha.
I've never heard that term. A fawn response. Okay. That's like just laughing it off, or?
Fight and flight, and then freeze and fawn. So fawn would be, I am safer from this danger source if I appease it.
I see.
Or if I, like act like everything's fine and feed into it so that they don't catch on that I'm very uncomfortable and I can find a way out of it. That's probably not
No, I've never even thought about that. Fight or flight is the binary choice, but like you could also basically play dead and pretend it's not a threat.
Well, that would be freeze.
Oh, freeze. Okay.
Yeah.
Ah.
I mean, I'm sure there's more reactions than that, but those are the ones that, I mean, freeze and fawn aren't talked about as much. And I think that they're also reactions that a lot of people are like, oh, well, if that person was being so creepy to you, why didn't you blah, blah, blah? It seems like you were blah, blah, blah. It's like those are very common reactions that get a lot of flack from an outside observer who's never been in a situation like that, because it seems, oh, well, you didn't do anything.
You've shown me a spectrum of reactions rather than this, this fight or flight.
As far
model.
as things go, I mean, like, I think the scariest was some teenagers setting off fireworks because I genuinely thought there was a gunman in the store.
Cool.
stink bombs were less scary, but more sensorially unpleasant, perhaps. I've, I think my least favorite thing, because it was the most common one, would be, I don't know how cock rings work. Can you explain? Every cock ring I get, it breaks, and
Oh God.
could you explain to me like how I could do, somebody trying to manipulate you into saying sexual things that
Right.
they want to hear that are not actually product related, but is under the mask of a product related question. That's the most common thing that even to this day I'll encounter.
Right.
And my response to that is to just be as dry and clinical in my response as possible, and not and just like bore them to death. Say the word like scrotal as much as possible. But I mean, there would be a lot of really amazing, like there's nothing as beautiful as helping someone find a sexual product. I mean, because they're not all toys. A harness or something like that, or like helping somebody feel comfortable getting the thing that they really want, but something's holding them back.
Right.
Another thing that would frequently happen and still happens on the internet, like this transcends whether it's IRL or in person, but people being freaked out by large sex toys, whether that be length, girth, or both. Just like that, really, from every type of person, like you'll get such outraged replies, and I can't say I enjoy seeing that, but it is a reminder to me that people are not educated when it comes to how like the bodily orifices work, but also they're just not aware of like the things that seem quote unquote wild and crazy that are like really not that unusual.
Standard issues sort of stuff.
Yeah, like I think if everybody knew what people were into on a more large scale, they would not be so shocked. And it's like, this is shocking to you individually, but I've spoken to so many people who like such a wide range of things that, a huge dildo is not all that wild and crazy. Like, people insert sounding rods into their urethras, and that might make you wince, but that's like a really, especially if you understand like the urethral tract and all of like the biological components of sounding, it actually doesn't seem so weird if you just learn about it. So a lot of these things are things that only seem weird when, and I'm not saying, a random person off the street wants to sound themselves. It's definitely more niche. But it's not as niche as you might think it is.
Yes.
And you never know when you're saying something that you think is like, oh, what kind of person likes this? And you never know when the person standing right next to you, that's their thing. And it's like, you don't know how dumb you sound when you are making jokes about things that might be funny to you, but are just like everyday things for somebody else.
Totally.
I'm using, slightly more, there's things way more unusual or niche than sounding, but, just as one example, I'm just picking that randomly.
It is a perfect example. Yeah, we've come hopefully a long way where it's like we're not talking about people's appearances or their, ethnic, appearances right in front of them, or, like that stuff is not gone, but but like this idea that like nobody knows what's going on sexually with other people. And so
a common denominator is that people are uneducated when they make remarks of any kind like that. Yes. And they're saying way more about themselves than they are about the person they're commenting on.
Yes. And you're also, obviously we're going to talk about this, you having these moments and educating people on the internet is at a much larger scale, meaning you and others are normalizing these things that are not a big deal to large audiences.
I suppose. I think that for a really long time, I actively was like, I'm gonna teach people online. I don't think you can really educate online in any, like, any education that people glean from me these days is generally not what I'm setting out to do. I'm setting out to entertain, and if you glean education from it, that's great. But I do not think that the internet is a place that is able to properly host comprehensive sex education.
Interesting.
And even when I have made, I certainly would like for it to be, but I think that every time I try to do that in the capacity, I use like 2018 as a benchmark where I was like making posts where I was like, here's why herpes, blah, blah, blah. Here's why, more educational, more like being like direct to camera, like being like, here's why you're wrong about blah, blah, blah.
Okay.
I think that some people really do learn well from that, but I felt as though it was just not like a place where I could have, there's no room for like a discourse. It's like you say something and there's comments, and it's really hard to reply without creating a weird dynamic where it's like there's no way to follow a train of thought through Instagram comments. So I don't
it's not
like
a conversation.
That.
It's you're on the stage and the audience is shouting from
you kind
the
of
chair.
It feels
from the
like
seats.
Kind of preachy, and even if you're not doing it in a preachy way, I just don't think that that's how I want to engage with education anymore. I love writing, and I find that the education that I post dildos I sell, and I posted a huge dildo as a tub drain stopper recently, and it's been like a month and people are still like fighting in the comments about this. Oh, you're blowing out your pussy. Oh, I'll park a SUV in there. Oh, like, and then other people being like, you don't understand that this is actually for men's asses. And it's like, okay, well, like that, like, it's funny because it's like, that is kind of moving in the right direction, but you're still like pigeonholing it as this other, it's like, you're kind of right. But it's like, it's just having the chatter, there's just too much, that's what it is. There's too much noise. There's too much, like, you can't easily sift through all the noise to find the important stuff in a platform like Instagram or TikTok or Twitter. I don't know, I guess people don't really use that anymore, but I do because of porn. But
I have questions about all this. Okay, I really want to dig into everything you're saying here.
Yes,
but
you get
briefly,
the point.
There's more to this point that I want to unpack, but briefly, so you're working in this sex shop, and then when do you start writing, and how does that inform your writing?
Right, we were answering this question.
The transition from, hey, I'm just working in this retail job to like you're actually putting, your thoughts and your experience on the web.
It was a conversation about lube I kept having over and over again that got me writing on Tumblr.
Okay.
It was basically, and this is actually a perfect way to tie this up, where like lube to me is one of the most pedestrian things in the world. But if you say lube to someone who's never really thought about it before, it seems like an attack, because they're like, what are you insinuating? Are you saying I'm dry? Are you saying there's something wrong with me? And then it's like, but it's also like this internal thing of like, because like I remember the first time I used lube was when I had a boyfriend kind of manipulate me into having anal sex. You know what I mean? So it was like not under a good circumstance. And for a long time I was like, oh, okay, lube is just for anal. Because like, but which is actually a pretty, that it's amazing I even knew that, when I was first sexually active. That's like a lot. Like people don't know that. People take pride in being like, oh, I just use spit, as though that's some badge of honor, when it's like, no, you're just like increasing your risk of injury. There's nothing cool about that. So it was having to explain to people who genuinely meant really well, but would have really like shocking, when I would be like, oh, and do you have a good lube to go with that? We're talking about silicone, rubbery materials that have more friction than, say, a finger or whatever. And I'd be like, oh, do you have lube to go with that? And then they'd be like, huh? So, and the truth, and for those who aren't awakened to the beauty of lube is really just kind of like, I feel like I've been seeing the meme lately. It's like, do you want to go down a dry slip and slide? And even if your body self-lubricates in massive amounts, there does come a point where, whether it's based on like the intensity of what you're doing or just like the duration of time, like there is an eventual point where you're going to need more lubrication, even if your body is like super self-lubricating. And medication alters this. How hydrated you are alters this. How much how stimulated you are. Like if you need to, the word foreplay is kind of like silly because a lot of what people consider foreplay is just like the main event. But like people don't like to warm their bodies up before penetration at all. And then they're like, why does this hurt? And it's like, well, you didn't focus externally. Most people need external stimulation and lube. So anyway, to get back to writing, I just was like, I'm fed up with like the fact that lube of all things makes people feel so like on guard or like get really defensive if I talk about it and they're in a sex toy store setting. So I just wrote an article or a blog post, I suppose, on Tumblr about
Tumblr. What year roughly, if we could place it? Because Tumblr went through lots of evolution since this time.
2013, probably.
Okay. Yep. All right. So you're posting there, and did you have an audience there, or were you just starting out?
I didn't really have a very big audience. I was doing like these porn collages that I still make to this day, but I was really, making like art on Tumblr, and then I really like how Tumblr's interface used to work because it was really easy to have absolute strangers stumble upon your work based on the way they had it set up back then. So there was some like website that would source articles from Tumblr posts, and they're basically like, hey, can we republish this for $50? And I was like, sure. And that kind of just like snowballed, and I had friends who had internships in different media places, and just kind of like serendipitously had that snowball into writing for my first big jobs were writing for Refinery 29 and simultaneously Yahoo Style randomly, which paid me really well.
Nice.
And
was all this writing focused on sex?
It was all
sexual
sex.
wellness. Yeah.
Yep. And it was like, I think I was talking about HPV. I was talking about like sexual health and wellness for sure. Kind of like whatever they wanted me to talk about, unless it was something I really was like, you've got the wrong person for the job. Because I think like a good way of putting it is peer education. Like there's all these certification programs now, but I like calling myself still a peer educator in that I'm gonna, research a topic alongside you if I don't know about it, and then I can tell you what I think based on what I know. Right. But not everyone knows everything, and especially if you haven't experienced it first person and you're just going based on, a lot of sex ed is anecdotal or culminated anecdotal things. So yeah.
Okay. So speaking of first person, there was a particular article, as I understand it, that really kicked things off for you in terms of your visibility on the internet or social media platforms. This is the 99 Guys article. Is this accurate?
Yes.
All right, tell us more.
I remember I had just moved to Detroit, so it was early 2015, and I made a blog post called "I've slept with 99 men and I'm looking for number 100."
Mm-hmm. So this was a personal blog post. This was not written for a publication.
Yes,
is that correct? Okay.
Yes, this was just like, let's drop this bomb. I mean, it's really not that crazy. It's really not. I mean, we're living in the world of, Lily Phillips having a 1,000 man gangbang or whatever, and like, I applaud that effort and the sexual stunt that is.
Should I know who this is or what this is? We don't have to
maybe
get
I'm
too
just
far
like
into
maybe my news sources are just like I have specific news sources.
Are you aware of Donald Trump and the tariffs and everything? Are you familiar with it? I'm just kidding.
Oh, I was like, you really want to talk about that right
no,
now?
I do not want to talk about it at all. But this idea that your entire news feed is just like gangbangs, and you're like, who's the president?
Honestly, kind of. I mean,
that'd be awesome. That would be great.
I mean, I obviously have ways of getting news in different ways, but as far as things I'm reading online, XBiz, which I mean is just one adult industry publication.
That's like a trade publication? Okay, interesting.
And that's like toys and adult. And that's way more like press releasey, but I don't know. It's like about people I know and brands I know. I'm paying more attention to that. Of course, we all read
the trade publications that are relevant to our industries.
Yes, absolutely.
So you are writing professionally, but then you also you publish this personal blog, and then what happens? What's the reaction to this?
I remember waking up and getting messages on Instagram, like, I don't remember which, it was somewhere in South America. I want to say it was Argentina, where it was like some local newspaper, some like gossip mag type newspaper had been like, this woman has slept with, like they just were, parroting it back.
Mm-hmm.
And I was just I maybe had like a few hundred followers. Or maybe
that was my next question of like, were you visible on Instagram, or was it just kind of like people you knew and whatever?
I had already had my social media deleted at that point, so I was like starting fresh.
Oh, okay.
And
why had you deleted it for like harassment reasons or something else?
I think it was the collages I was making because it was very pornographic.
Meaning the platform deleted you because it was I see explicit content.
Yeah. So I had a restart very early on, and I'm, knock on wood, thankful to have kept my account pretty much for the last 10 years. I have
questions about that as well, but we'll get there. Okay,
I know way too much about account recovery now.
Yeah. So you're suddenly getting a lot of weird visibility and like media attention for like weird
it wasn't
reasons.
Even weird. I loved it. I ate it up. Yeah. I remember,
but it's media and people being like, this woman, what's up with her?
Honestly,
rather than like,
it was mostly positive.
Okay,
and
good.
At that point, I was used to way more hate than that. I had like the most hate I had gotten was an article about times I had like been the other woman in a relationship. And it was like not pro cheating. It was like here's what I've learned from my dating experience and times when like things didn't go well and when I realized I was the other woman. And like that got me so much hate, and like people being like, you're the reason for like people's misery in marriages, blah blah blah. What I don't know.
The home wrecker, right?
Yeah, it was the home wrecker narrative. So I felt like this was actually very positive overall, and I was excited, and I had like people reaching out to my Instagram or like people I had posted a photo with being like, tell me more about this girl, blah, blah, blah. So my friends were being like, I have strangers reaching out to me.
Whoa.
I had a friend from out of town staying with me, and I'll never forget her just being like, don't let this get to your head. It certainly did get to my head too. I was really like, I loved it. And like, I'm not going to lie, I still love getting attention. I think anyone who thinks they don't like getting a little bit of attention is full of shit.
Right.
But it was the first time I was like going viral, and I was like,
you're seeing meaningful movement on like a platform like Instagram where like, I had a couple hundred followers and now all of a sudden you've got thousands and
yes. And I was not even thinking about it from a business standpoint. Right. I was just like, they like me. They really like me.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, obviously not everything was positive, but I felt like that was also an era where like people were like, what's your number? Oh, oh my God, you slept with 25 people. You're such a slut.
Mm-hmm.
And like, I think people still think that today.
Mm-hmm.
But I think that was I trolling a little bit with my article? Absolutely. I had totally fucked more than 100 people, maybe not significantly more, but it was like, I was like,
okay.
Well, it's like I think also what people thought was so weird is I had like a list. I had like a spreadsheet where I would like write down everyone I'd hooked up with. And like, honestly, that might sound weird, but like, you know, there was one time I got gonorrhea and had to call a few people and I knew exactly who to call.
Hey, data.
And I'm not ashamed of that.
Yeah.
And, you know, data, statistics.
Yeah.
But, you know, never for anything more than my own memory, not like ever something for the public to see.
Right.
And that obviously did remain private, but I was like, oh, there's something so like funny and like, you know, type A about keeping a spreadsheet about people you fuck. And also I was like, you know, 21, 22, 23, somewhere in there, early 20s. And like, I thought I was a fully blossomed adult, but like now I'm about to be 33 and I know I'm still a baby in many ways, but I'm just like, yeah, being 21 is like not that. Being 21 is closer to being, you know, 18 than 25 in my brain. You know, there's like a little bit. It's like elongated high school.
You're right. You are clinically right. I just did a little bit of research on this as well for this talk I gave. Anyway,
interesting.
Yeah, there's a part of your brain, the prefrontal cortex, regulates impulse control.
Yes,
and it's not. You're not fully developed. You do not have control of your impulses until you're 25 years old. But
listen, I know a lot of us that are older than 25, and we have no impulse control. But in the but I guess what I mean to say is I was really bright-eyed and bushy-tailed and excited by this, and I think the largest publication that eventually picked it up was Daily Mail. So I was like, I've made it to the big leagues.
Which sucks, by the way. They fucking rip everything off and steal everything.
Of course.
But the visibility is good for
every news outlet like that is just churning rage or small amounts of joy into money.
Correct.
And you know, but I was at the time really happy to be a part of that machine because it meant that I was getting spread far and wide.
So it's happening. What do you do?
I guess, yes.
What do you do with this moment?
Oh God, what did happen then? I think I just wrote more and more and more. I think I started mining my own life experience and trauma for engagement. I was writing about health scares. I was writing about stuff that was personal and things that I don't necessarily regret putting out into the world, but things that I would certainly not share about myself today if I was doing it over as who I am now.
Because like it is everything that's social. Like many of the most successful influencers are deeply personal, but so few people do that about sex. And so you're tapping into everything.
I was exiting therapy appointments and being like, here's what I just trauma dumped about. This is what happened to me. And like, listen, I think it's really good to feel empowered to share that about yourself. Sure. But also, I got to be real. I was aware of the fact that I would be keeping people paying attention to my story, you know, no matter how real or genuine it was.
Right.
And I think everybody does this, even if you have like the most boring Instagram, you are mining your own life for engagement. Sorry, you just are.
That is the game. That is what it is.
And I was doing that to an extent where I was giving people a little too much of me.
Sure.
So it all, you know, it really, but here's the thing. I was being really rewarded for that. I was having people be like, I've really struggled with X, Y, and Z. Thank you so much for sharing this with. And that's what kept me doing it. Not like I wasn't making any money doing this. I was just like, people are hearing me. People hear my voice. And it was really touching a lot of people. And that is why I don't regret it, because even to this day, I'll have someone be like, man, I'll never forget you posting about herpes in they wouldn't say 2017, but they'll be like, I'll never forget your herpes post. And that really changed my perspective on it and made me feel less insecure about it. And
that's
like
powerful.
that is the fuel that kept me going. It was not just pure, like, pay attention to me. But it's like I was getting that energy back, and that made me feel really good. And like, it is really beautiful, emotional stuff to be able to connect with strangers over things that you're told you're not supposed to talk about.
Well said. So when does it start looking like a career? Like, you can be like, oh, okay, people are listening, people are getting value, I'm writing professionally. When does it turn into content creation, and or when do you start thinking about opening the shop?
So I'll kind of do a summary of these things, but writing for Refinery 29 also led to like writing for other larger outlets. I was getting like lots of Huffington Post or Cosmo. I was just like expanding the publications I was writing for. I was also continuing to make weird, silly art. I made a short film with a friend of mine that was like, had nothing to do with sex. It was just like me being this like weird character we had dreamed up. We submitted it to a now defunct website called Super Deluxe, which a lot of people confuse with Vice. I did a lot of stuff with Vice as well, but the video series I did, sex stuff, was with Super Deluxe.
Yeah.
And I basically, like, we submitted the short film to Super Deluxe being like, do you like this? Do you want us to make more of this? And they were like, no, but we think Zoe should do something sex ed related.
Okay.
So now all of a sudden, and they paid me so well. That was the first time
These were the golden days.
That was when I started like being like, wow, I'm making a paycheck.
Yeah.
I was making these videos called Sex Stuff. And I think the more famous, memorable ones were the ovipositor, the dildo that lays alien eggs inside of your body.
I came across this when researching your work, or we maybe have noticed it when me and my colleagues were working in media as well.
It actually was finally removed from YouTube in the past month, so you can't even watch it anymore.
Just because it's too explicit or something?
Well, I mean, you can't see anything, but they find, I'd say about a third of the episodes of Sex Stuff have now been like fully deleted by YouTube. I have all of the files on backup, but
good.
If you do want to watch all the episodes, you can go to my ManyVids profile, which is, you're going to have to sift through lots of masturbation videos. I'm so sorry. But they are on ManyVids if you want to see all the original episodes.
ManyVids. So this is a hosting platform for stuff that you can't put on YouTube. Okay.
Yes. Okay. And anyway, so that got millions and millions and millions of views. Like every video pretty much. There was a lot of amazing ones. The rope bondage with Midori episode, I would say, was a more serious and probably, maybe to this day, even one of my favorite things I've ever created, based on the amount of feedback I've heard from other people saying how much it meant to them. That one is still online.
Okay. And
shortly after that, I guess it wasn't shortly after that, but like maybe within the next couple of years, I'm jumping all over.
That's fine.
Super Deluxe was after I had opened Spectrum Boutique. So,
I see.
Spectrum Boutique was in 2015. I had just moved to Detroit. This was like within a year of the 99 Guys article or whatever.
You're super young at this. I mean, you know what I mean?
Yes,
like you're 22, 23 at this point? That's
and
wild.
I like to, my full disclosure on that is that you can't get financial funding to open a sex toy store. I applied for a lot of grants. My dad died in 2014.
Wow.
And it was a bit out of the blue and unexpected. So I also was like dealing with that, but also had my dad's like retirement money essentially.
Yeah.
So it's, I like to be transparent about this because was I a trust fund kid? No. Like I had no idea that this was like in the pipeline. I was not expecting to lose my dad. And, it certainly was the kind of thing where like, I'm not set for life by any means, but I can turn this into something that hopefully sustains me.
Yeah.
So without that, who the fuck knows if this would have ever happened?
Because you could have just applied that to pay the rent, but instead you invested it in yourself and a future business. Yeah.
And it was a lot too, because like even though it wasn't a brick and mortar, starting a website's very expensive, especially
e-commerce for sure. Yeah.
Yeah. So I bought my house with that money, the one I'm sitting in right now, and I started Spectrum Boutique, and I was like, I need a roof over my head, and I need a job.
Yep.
And so that was kind of like the life circumstances that allowed me to grow as aggressively as I did at a young age. And I like to be transparent about that because I really detest when some rich kid is acting like they're self-made. But I put in the work too. I worked my ass off. And I still do. I don't think I ever take a day off. And that's what I like think people need to know too, is it's like, even last night I was like out seeing my friend perform and I was like, I gotta go. I gotta do a bunch of shit in the morning. I hate my boss. She is me. I hate her.
Oh, I like that. Oh, I might steal that actually. Yeah.
Yeah. But it's like, it's a trade-off. Yeah. So, Spectrum Boutique really would not have happened if it weren't for that. But also the online audience I had cultivated was enough of an audience to make it so that I wasn't just releasing a expensive website that I created into the void.
Into the void where no one was already there. Okay, so it's the writing, it's the super deluxe YouTube stuff. It is launching the brand, but also coinciding with this increased Instagram and social following. This is a perfect storm, and you have the funding, of course. So this is a perfect storm to launch you into the next phase, the next chapter of your life, which we're going to get into in a moment. We got to take a break. But before we take a break, we must do our court-mandated trivia segment where I try to stump every single one of my guests with a multiple-choice trivia question. Are you prepared? I know it's still early for you. Okay.
I am prepared. I have to. I'll do this to let you know to edit. I have a hard stop at 1:00. I can go maybe like 5 minutes over.
All right, great.
Just letting you know.
Plenty of time.
Yeah.
Plenty of time. Today's trivia question is actually really brief. It's really simple. We're talking about having fun when it comes to sex ed on the internet, and today's trivia is it's locked and loaded. Which popular band is named after a famous dildo?
Oh, Steely Dan.
Well, she did it. You want to know my other choices?
Yeah, what are... Oh, you didn't even... There were choices for me?
Yes,
oh,
always.
You made it too easy.
Bananarama. And Faster Pussycat.
Oh, I mean, those are good red herrings.
Yeah, exactly. Red herrings. I didn't know this. You are... Friends, listeners, Zoe is the first guest ever in the history of the show to get the question right instantly without even hearing the full question and choices. This is monumental.
You don't understand, though. We do like sex ed Q&A at events and like Zoom things, and that's like always one of the questions.
Is it? Okay, great.
Yeah.
Man,
so,
see, I always
give cheating. I use that question when I do trivia.
I always bring trivia that's like relevant to the guests' like work, but here we are. All right. Do you know the namesake? Do you know what it's referencing?
Oh God, no, I don't.
I didn't know this either.
I do, but I don't. Like I know it.
You'll
if you
know
tell
it when
me,
you
I'll
hear
know
it.
Yeah.
So there's an American author named William S. Burroughs, which is like, is he one of those literature guys that you probably come across in school or college? And he wrote a 1959 novel called Naked Lunch.
Yes, it's a Naked Lunch reference.
And apparently there is a movie within the book, and maybe it's an adult film, I don't know. And the full name of the dildo in the movie that is in this book is called Steely Dan 3 from Yokohama.
Okay, I'm going to actually internalize and remember this time.
Oh, it's a stag film screened at a party in the lawless interzone, which might be a premise of this, I don't know, sci-fi book or something.
I think I read Naked Lunch when I was like 18, and I think it bored me to death. Sorry.
I've never, despite being a lapsed English major, I do not know. I'm not familiar with it. All right. Well, this is unprecedented. We will take a break here because we do not have to answer the trivia question. But when we return, more with Zoe right after this break. You know what time it is. It's time to thank all the people that make this program possible over on patreon.com/influencepod, including the executive producers at the $10 per month level. Those people are Dominic Kerr, Bowie Barks, Duran, and of course, William. Thank you to everyone who supports the Patreon at any tier, even the free one. And thanks for subscribing on all the podcast platforms, the YouTubes, the Apples, the Spotifys, Pocket Casts. If you're enjoying the show, share it with someone who might benefit from it and who is interested in internet culture as much as you and I are. Now, we're not going to have a trivia answer for Zoe because she already got it right. So we're just going to get right back into the interview right after this. We're back with Zoë Ligon, which rhymes with friggin', as she told me before we started recording. All right. You launched the boutique. You've got a following. You're very visible across the internet, YouTube, and now Instagram and TikTok. What's your primary platform these days? Is it Instagram?
Yeah, Instagram.
Okay. So like before we get into the current like business and what you do sort of day to day, I am fascinated by this idea. We talked about Tumblr. Tumblr used to be a place where you could post explicit content and sexual content, and then it stopped being that. And Instagram / Facebook / Meta and most modern social platforms that are normal people use prohibit all this stuff. And even if you bump up to the borderline where it's not explicit but it's dicey, you're going to get reported. You're going to get flagged. So like you're not posting explicit things, obviously, but like, how do you manage that and how do you deal with all that stuff?
I mean, part of the reason I started doing OnlyFans, I began in fall of 2019.
Okay.
It was the kind of situation where I was basically posting nudes online already, whether that be in like R Gone Wild or
which longtime listeners know. Did we cover Gone Wild? Oh, we did Gone Wild audio way back in the day. Yeah. A wonderful performer. it was her screen name. She was anonymous. I don't remember who she was, but yeah.
So I was just posting my naked self on there, making a lot of content for people I was fucking and sending it to them. And also like basically would be posting pretty much just naked images of myself, trying to get as risque as possible without getting the content deleted. So I'd be, using emojis or blurring it or finding creative ways to put like a leaf over my crotch or something like that.
And just briefly, like, what is your personal motivation around that? Meaning you're writing about your experiences and you're educating people, but then also like, and this is one of my questions, like you have an OnlyFans and you're posting explicit, you have been posting explicit content for some time.
Yes.
Do you consider yourself to be a sex worker in that regard?
Yes and no. I think that OnlyFans is a very specific type of sex work, online sex work. I think it really just depends on the context because I certainly have the experience of doing sexual things as part of my work, but also having said that, OnlyFans is a really narrow and like recent container for that.
Right.
So I think it's like, it is and it isn't sex work. Like I certainly identify with it being sex work, but I also recognize that it's like really removed from a lot of the traditional things that make sex work sex work.
Okay. Yeah, very interesting. Do you? So they're connected, but do you view them as two different sides of your livelihood now?
Not for other people. I think I mean more so for myself, because it's like I am an influencer and I have an OnlyFans. So I think that it's like yes, I would say I do online sex work.
Okay.
I'd say is like my
Yeah.
version of that, because I think that I mean, this is like a whole separate tangent, but there's just like sex work encompasses so many different things.
Right.
There was a time in my life when I tried to be a dom. There was a time in my life when I did a little bit of phone sex. But I don't know. I think that and this conversation has changed so much since the pandemic, but I think
Right.
there's like an inherent privilege in being an influencer who then enters online sex work, versus the other way around, like already having an audience and joining OnlyFans. Is very different from just fully building that from the ground up.
Yeah, like in a way you did it backwards, because I imagine that there are many adult performers who become so notable that they are then well followed on traditional social platforms, right?
I mean, but I don't even think that's true. I mean, I think Maitland Ward is a really good example of a Hollywood quote unquote actor who then got into adult. I think that one of the positive things about OnlyFans being more of a household name is that there is more of an understanding and acceptance of adult content being work. It's not like
and being financial, having a creator relationship with the audience where they are paying you for the content rather than just random ad supported shit all over the internet. You know what I mean by that?
Yeah. And like in the grand scheme of things, porn has not like been around for very long. Like, yes, we do. Like film and media, film and photography haven't been around for that long in the grand scheme of human history. So, while we certainly have some black and white silent porn films from the early 1900s, so much of making any type of adult content was criminalized until the 70s that, we don't have like that long of a history to reflect upon. I mean, in my lifetime, it certainly is a very long time. I'm a 90s baby.
Sure.
But, it wasn't all that long ago that creator websites like OnlyFans didn't exist, and it was mostly a tube site, and before that DVD, and before that VHS, and it's gone through a lot of changes, and it changes media consumption of porn has just changed so much throughout the years. And it's so much more
about this in relation to lots of different forms of young media as well, but I know exactly what you mean. So what does your livelihood look like? So you have the shop, and then you have OnlyFans, and then are you doing like brand partnerships? Oh, you know what I wanted to ask before we touch on that?
Yeah.
So you're walking right up to the line on Instagram with not explicit content, but then I also think about the audience relationship of like, hey, I'm a guy and all my friends and family are on Instagram, and then I'm going to follow you on Instagram. How do people navigate? Do you talk with your audience about that? About like, do people make Finstas to follow adult content on Instagram? Like, what's the culture there? Do you know anything about that?
I am the wrong person to ask, because like there is a part of culture where, a significant other is looking through who their significant other follows in great detail.
Yeah.
And I am not
I don't
that
mean
person.
like people spying on people. I just mean like, we all project certain personas of ourselves onto mainstream social platforms, and then we can use OnlyFans or tube sites as like the private area, right?
Yeah.
But like to follow an adult performer on Instagram is an interesting thing, an interesting proposition.
To approach it that way, it makes a adult performer be a very one-dimensional person. Like if that's like, I'm not saying that if you're advertising yourself as such online, that's not your primary reason you're online. But I think that there's so many reasons someone might feel a connection or affinity to somebody. I follow so many like adult performers where I do not engage with their content in any way, and I just like following them.
Just
or
like
I
keeping up with them.
Yeah, or I just like what they make that is safe for work, and then or their personality, or I just like looking at them, and like that is a sales funnel as well.
Yeah, of course.
But yeah, I think I'm the wrong person to ask.
It's really interesting, and it's I guess I'm criticizing society and social norms of like, well, I feel so weird following an adult person on Instagram because what will people think of me? And the answer is like, fuck that. Who cares?
Anyone who's paying that much attention to who someone else is following is like doing way too much work.
There you go. All right, so let's talk about the sales funnel. You got the shop, you got OnlyFans, you've got more than 200,000 followers on Instagram, right?
Yeah. So to your question, essentially, I mean, I do work with brands, but they're typically brands that I already do business with. So it's very easy and organic to like be like, I sell products from this company, and this company is going to also engage me as an influencer to promote their products.
You are your own marketing channel for the business and your business partners. That's cool.
And, there are some products that I can't sell or won't sell that I will promote as an influencer. Like for instance, like CBD products I can't sell because of payment processor stuff, but like I'll work with a CBD brand directly.
I see.
More so like in the lube space, not like just general CBD.
Yeah.
But I also do consulting, and I like to like advise and consult as well. I'd say that's like probably the biggest growing part of my job right now.
For other adult businesses or okay. Yeah. Are you I don't know that I'd know any of them, but like, are there household names here, or are these up and coming things? Are you allowed to talk about them publicly?
A little bit of both. I think like there's like I can design and manufacture products. That's a recent skill I've acquired. And just as far as like knowing all of the little hoops you have to jump through with that.
Interesting. Are you 3D rendering things in Blender or AutoCAD and then sending them to China to manufacture and all that?
Yeah. Although honestly, I rarely have to do that because it's so easy to to have ideas be made into prototypes other ways now. But yes, I have fucked around with a 3D printer.
Literally and figuratively.
Yeah.
Okay. On your link tree, I also saw a site called Depop, which is for used clothing. But tell me more about this, because is this site for like retro vintage used clothing, but you are using it in a different way?
Used panties. No, I sell my used panties on OnlyFans. If people want that, you can inquire there.
Okay.
I don't think Depop even allows that.
Okay.
No, I just have so many fucking clothes, and my body has fluctuated in size throughout my adult life. And there's some things I just know I will never wear again for various reasons. And I'm purging my closet. I also have a lot of like fetish clothing that I'll have, like I've worn it so much or whatever that I'm like, I'm not going to be featuring this outfit anymore.
Okay.
So basically that was a recent thing, actually. Only in the past few months, I just like really got my Depop stocked, but really just purging my closet. It's not super deep. It's kind of fun, but it is fun to like sell things to people outside of my established brand, because it's actually like way more difficult in a lot of ways, because there's like a certain etiquette on Depop of how people sell that is like completely different from my business. Like,
interesting. Yeah. Well, and maybe what I'm getting at is like, are people buying these because they're like, oh yeah, I need that product, or are the people buying these fans of yours who want to get clothes that you have already worn? You know what I mean?
I have no idea.
You don't know? Okay.
No
All right.
idea.
All right. The book.
Mm-hmm.
This came out of the article writing. Is that right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
What's it all about? I mean, the title says it all, but
yeah, all the photos are by Elizabeth Renstrom, who's also just a personal close friend of mine.
okay.
We did a article together that was like eight sexual PSAs kind of. And that was an article that was essentially then adapted into a book of, I think, 52, something like that. And it's kind of just like a broad range of subjects. And I don't go super deep on any of the subjects, but it's kind of like a wide array of subjects and a few paragraphs on, things like body hair and, of course, lube and like, does penis size matter? What's the G-spot? What's squirting? Shit like that.
Okay. And did this end up? I should have looked. This is through a large publisher, or is this a self-published situation? Where did it end up?
Yeah, Prestel is the publisher, and Penguin Random House is distributing it. So it does have a nice little back end situation.
Yeah, exactly. Meaning it's got a great looking cover and it's on shelves. People will find it if bookstores are still out there. People will see it there. Hopefully.
I mean, it's hard too because it released in September 2020, so it was like the pits of COVID. It was like maybe the worst possible time frame for it to come out.
Not only are people not going out to buy anything, but you're probably not having the same amount of sex that you were a month ago.
Literally, one of the tips is don't have your social life be totally online. Go out into the world. And I was like, fuck my life, of course. And at that point, we didn't know how long we were all going to be
this will
inside.
be over in a couple of weeks. No big deal. Everything will be back. Yeah.
So
phenomenal. Okay, but it sounds like it's doing well despite the challenges.
Yeah, it's oh no, I mean, I have no complaints. It's such a beautiful book, and everyone who had a hand in it did such an amazing job. I'm really proud of it, and I think one thing that's special about it is that it is I'm not going to say what age it's intended for. I've heard a lot of feedback that it is more introductory, but I think it is a book you can read cover to cover, like a book, or it's something you can flip through like more of a coffee table art book. And I like that it has different, you can choose how deeply you want to engage with it, because I think when I'm reading a sex ed book, a lot of them are pretty exhausting, and it's hard to just read cover to cover, or I just have to really divide it into chunks. So I feel like it's very digestible chunks.
Well, this comes out of your internet writing too, meaning everything about formulating a piece for the internet is about lists and bite size and shareable.
Yeah,
and so
I took a lot of the text from my Instagram posts, and it certainly was not the exact text, but it created a framework of what have I talked about that got a lot of engagement?
Yeah,
so
totally.
I used that to kind of be what subjects do I want to include in this 50 tip roundup, essentially.
I love that. I love that as a test bed, because you have thousands of people who are guinea pigs for what do people want to know about, and what do people care about? I love it.
Exactly.
I love it. All right. In the brief time we have left, any upcoming projects or products or platforms that you're thinking about?
This is not super exciting, but we've just been doing a lot of back end updating on the Spectrum Boutique website, and we basically relaunched it this yesterday, essentially.
Oh wow! All right, congrats.
A lot of not sexy, unglamorous updates, but basically just been like reissuing and like giving a little cleanup to the website. So I know that's not like a big a thing to announce per se, but
probably a nicer experience for customers and fans.
Exactly.
Yeah. Very good.
But I think I think I'm just plodding along. I can't like announce all of the like product things I'm working on, unfortunately, yet.
No exclusives today. Damn it.
I am looking to go to law school in the next couple of years. So I've been studying for the LSAT.
Why? Why would you do that to yourself?
Because I would like to be able to help defend sexual freedom and expression, among other things.
Okay, good. All right, I take it back. Please do that. please fight for us. And then, I will link to Spectrum Boutique and Zoe's socials and Linktree. All the things we've been discussing will be in the show notes and the video description. Any other places people should check out your stuff before we get out of here?
Definitely subscribe to my OnlyFans. You should definitely do that.
Link in the doobly-doo, everyone. Zoë Ligon, thank you so much for being my guest on Influence. It was a pleasure talking with you.
Thanks, Matt.
Endlessly fascinating. I will never not be impressed with people who are making a living and making a name for themselves in areas of the internet that are just not, they're not welcome in on mainstream platforms. And if they are, they have to do a lot of work to keep it, whatever you want to call it, PG-13. And so I'm just really fascinated by the people who make that work, and Zoe is certainly one of them. It's great to see that education, entertainment, sexy stuff, it's all coming together into a business that she's built, and it's an impressive story. So thank you again to Zoë Ligon for being my guest. And, you know me. I'm going to be back with you next week to talk about more weird internet stuff. As always, if you have people to suggest, these days, so many guests are coming from listener suggestions or friends of friends of friends who are like, oh, I saw the thing. Oh, I like this person. Oh, I would love for you to talk to this person, or, hey, I know this person and they've been doing well on this platform or that platform. If you, if you're fascinated by someone who's doing extraordinary work on the internet, please get in touch. Every way to contact me is in the show notes and the video description, including the email address, which is influencepod69@gmail.com. You know it. And what more is there to say but to please be kind, rewind your podcast after you listen, and I'll talk at you in just 1 week's time.